Tucker Carlson continuously demonstrates his inability to empathize with people. Here he is talking about Vladimir Putin, asking rhetorical questions about why Putin is hated, because he believes that you're only able to disagree with somebody or find them objectionable or odious if they have done something harmful to you. That's quite useful for conservatives. I will say I find Tucker Carlson odious. He has never, not yet, personally done anything to me, but we'll see what his analysis is about Vladimir Putin.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson.
Jesus.
Tonight, since the day that Donald Trump became president, Democrats in Washington have told you have a patriotic duty to hate Vladimir Putin. It's not a suggestion, it's a mandate. Anything less than hatred for Putin is treason. Many Americans
Wait, can we pause that for a second? I don't hate Putin more than I hate, like, leaders of this country. I think he's bad. I haven't been tried for treason yet, just saying. I don't know, maybe that prosecution is somewhere in
pending.
It's in the same legal judicial system that Jordan Peterson's prosecution for his courageous stance against, trans-Marxism, language dictates.
Or how about it's in the same department as the lost files for where Tucker's being investigated by the NSA.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's just like they had a flood or something. Keep going.
Dutifully hate Vladimir Putin. Maybe you're one of them. Hating Putin has become the central purpose of America's foreign policy. It's the main thing that we talk about. Entire cable channels are now devoted to it. Very soon, that hatred of Vladimir Putin could bring the United States into a conflict in Eastern Europe.
Nope.
Before that happens, it might be worth asking
Pause it again,
yourself,
sorry. It's the MSNBC stuff and not like the agitating for preemptive sanctions by members of the party that you're in the bag for anyway.
Right. It's just like indistinguishable from Glenn Greenwald at this point. But yeah, it's just like, and also he only pretends to be anti-war when it's convenient. And he's completely ignoring the fact that, for example, Biden has said we're not going to involve U.S. troops. That could change. And that would be worthy of immense criticism. But you're not going to get credit when you do it for, complete dove Tucker Carlson.
Pretty serious. What is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Has he shipped every middle-class job in my town to Russia? Did he manufacture a worldwide pandemic that wrecked my business
there you
and kept
go.
me indoors for 2 years? Is he teaching my children to embrace racial discrimination? Is he making fentanyl? Is he trying to snuff out Christianity? Does he eat dogs? These are fair questions, and the answer to all of them is no. Vladimir Putin didn't do any of that. So why does permanent Washington hate him so much? If you've been watching the news, you know that Putin is having a border dispute with a nation called Ukraine. Now, the main thing to know about Ukraine for our purposes is that its leaders once sent millions of dollars to Joe Biden's family. Not surprisingly, Ukraine is now one of Biden's favorite countries. Biden has pledged to defend Ukraine's borders even as he opens our borders to the world. That's how it works. Invading America is called equity. Invading Ukraine is a war crime. So with every day, we move closer to some kind of conflict with Russia, conflict that could easily spin out of control, given that the people running this have no fine motor skills. The administration assures us this has nothing at all to do with repaying Joe Biden's personal debts to Ukrainian oligarchs. Not at all. It's completely and totally unrelated.
What?
The point here is to defend democracy. Not that Ukraine is a democracy. It is not a democracy. Ukraine's president has arrested his main political opponent. He has shut down newspapers and television stations that have dared to criticize him. So in American terms, you would call Ukraine a tyranny. But Joe Biden likes Ukraine, so Putin bad, war good.
Okay. I'm trying not to go here, but it's hard for me not to. The complete disconnect from reality about Biden's actual position in this conflict, which has been sanctions and a promise not to involve troops, is just not reflected in Tucker's monologue, and is also everything that we're hearing from like the Greenwald types on Twitter, or the Tracy types, or the Mate types. This is exactly the same kind of stuff. There's no context that's imbued. And it's just interesting to me that it works hand in hand.
Because all those people are avoidant of criticizing the Republican Party.
Well, right. It's a way to critique Democrats.
Make it about MSNBC as opposed to legislators. I mean, I think
as opposed to like the Republicans who want preemptive sanctions. I mean, it's not like he's making a standard Republican critique there. Biden's weak or whatever. No, he's saying Biden is hating Putin irrationally, as are the MSNBC Democrats, and he has debts to Ukraine because of Hunter Biden. Like maybe the only vaguely interesting kernel there, although that has nothing to do with this, in my opinion. That's just like standard corruption from politicians and their children and nepotism. And then, of course, he goes on to just hint at a smorgasbord of racist tropes. Does he eat dogs? So if you're Chinese, that's who you hate. Like the idea that people who go on his show and say this guy's anti-war because they'll watch this monologue and like, oh, of course.
They're misleading people.
They're liars because this guy is thrilled by the idea of drumming up racial resentment towards Chinese people. And just listen to it right there.
Yeah.
Like listen to it right there.
This is the form of the supposed anti-war message, but in the exact same sentence, in the same breath, he's saying we should actually just hate China, right? Which is the Republican Party, initiative right now. That's what their focus is on. In addition to preemptive sanctions, which again, and
that's not even his critique. Like that's not even his critique. Right. I mean, then start a third party, Tucker. If you're really this impassioned about it, because the people in your party are the ones that are drumming up more conflict consistently. The Republican Party is more pro-war. That is the reality. And yes, it's more widespread than I would like, but I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with how Biden has approached this. But then he basically like makes these roundabout arguments about because he's opened our borders that a hostile invasion of another country is, basically you're a hypocrite. So
and how did we close our borders using a bullshit COVID justification with Title 42, which again...
Is he going to mention that?
I haven't seen... I'd love to see Michael Tracy, the so-called person who's on this COVID authoritarianism beat, mention that on Tucker, but I think Michael and Glenn frankly like the border being closed. If they didn't, they would act differently. That's my supposition, but maybe they're, trying not to step on any of Tucker's toes or his bow ties or whatever.
Don't step on the bow ties. Don't step in the woodshed. It's never used. It's pristine. And another thing, sorry, because we talked about this Portland shooter who's radicalized by the far right. Like, Bradley, do you think we can just go back to the one part where he lists all of the things and groups them all together? The eating of the dogs, the critical race theory, the fentanyl. Like, this is all you ever need to see from this dude to understand exactly the kind of like, when you add all of these things together, you multiply the aggrievement and the anger. And it also diversifies the right wing's targets. So you don't just hate this one group, you get to hate a bunch of people. And you're the special one.
But even when the closest thing he gets to over the critique of capitalism here is the people who sent your jobs overseas, which again, like he
makes it about China
or policymakers, right? As opposed to the capitalists who are seeking the capitalist system, which is always going to seek cheapest profit or cheapest labor.
Yeah.
Many Americans have obeyed this directive. They now dutifully hate Vladimir Putin. Maybe you're one of them. Hating Putin has become the central purpose of America's foreign policy. It's the main thing that we talk about. Entire cable channels are now devoted to it. Very soon, that hatred of Vladimir Putin could bring the United States into a conflict in Eastern Europe. Before that happens, it might be worth asking yourself, since it is getting pretty serious, what is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Has he shipped every middle-class job in my town to Russia? Did he manufacture a worldwide pandemic that wrecked my business and kept me indoors for 2 years? Is he teaching my children to embrace racial discrimination? Is he making fentanyl? Is he trying to snuff out Christianity? Does he eat dogs? These are fair questions.
All right, good. All right, I think I got it all. people that Tucker says you're supposed to hate. If you get called a racist by somebody, they're the people that you actually should hate. If someone fires you because you said something racist.
No, he said tried to get somebody fired.
Oh, tried to get somebody
fired. It wasn't
fired.
the boss. It was the person who called your boss.
I only had time to write down get fired. Someone who ships your jobs overseas. All right, like if you want to make a critique of capitalism, as Matt said, we can talk about that.
I think it's more about, let's blame it all on Hillary Clinton.
And then we get into like the grouping of Chinese people. Manufacturing a pandemic. He went further even there than he had before. Critical race theory. That's just, why don't you hate black people in teachers' unions? Fentanyl. I don't know. That's like a fairly neutral one, I would guess. It's people who are trying to snuff out Christianity. So Muslim people, probably. Or the amorphous globalist.
Yeah. And the easier answer is just that I have is capitalists and the politicians that they own.
That's not what he's interested in. God, he's a really bad person.
Yeah, I think
I hate you, Tucker. I mean,
and yeah, I think people can MSNBC criticism is great and all that stuff, but I think continuing to go on this guy's show is despicable, and there has to be some sort of like win for people who care about supposed like anti-war issues, and I don't see it anywhere. This is like, if this is the influence that Glenn Greenwald has on Tucker, which is to make him we're hating Putin and not the Chinese people because they're eating dogs. Like great success there, great influence.